Record. Hello, friends. Chris McMillan here with Autonomy Season 1. I'm here with Derrick Broze of theconsciousresistance.com. Derrick is an author, a journalist, an activist, and a researcher. And currently, he has taken up a very new role. He's running for the mayor of Houston, Texas. Derrick, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to me. What's going on?
Hey, brother. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's always good to catch up with you and see you taking on new ventures. As far as what's going on, man, it's just, another day in paradise, I guess you could say, the USSA, if as some put it. I'm doing all the things you just mentioned. For those who are unfamiliar with my work, I do recommend checking out theconsciousresistance.com. That's where I post all my news reports and vlogs and articles and things of that sort. And you can find that on the YouTube channel. And I'm on all the different alternative platforms, minds.com, Steemit, DTube, all that good stuff. But yeah, so I spend, my time trying to inform people, like I imagine those who are watching this like to be informed. And as you mentioned, I've decided in the last couple months, just really officially in the last 3 weeks, to launch a campaign for mayor of Houston, which for anybody who's familiar with my work, when I mentioned this to a few friends, it was sort of like jaws on the floor, or you're a sellout, or what the heck are you thinking, or things like that. Because for those who aren't familiar with my work, I definitely emphasize the conscious resistance. That phrase, that idea is about spiritual empowerment and personal growth, as well as confronting and exposing the systems of power in the physical world. But not just let's focus on they, them, but how do we play a role, and how can we help ourselves and work on our trauma and heal ourselves spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and also, take that on while we're exposing these things. So that's the approach I've taken for the last decade. And along with that, I've actively discouraged people from participating in the political system, because I do think that it's, especially when it comes to the federal level, is a huge waste of time, and that resources, time, money, energy can be better spent elsewhere. But I have also, you may remember, Chris, like from hearing some of my talks before, like I've always kind of added this caveat that, look, if you feel the need to get involved and play the political system, focus as local as possible. Like, city council, mayor, school board, neighborhood association, like something that's actually where you might have a role, an ability to have a role and affect your community more than you ever could, affect the federal government, things like that. So, I never thought I'd be in this position, but I decided, like, look, in the last year, my work has become focused, not exclusively, but quite a bit on two main issues, I would say. That is exposing pedophilia. I put out a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein called Bringing Down Jeffrey Epstein. And I put out a documentary about this cult called The Finders, focused on similar topics: CIA connections, pedophilia, human trafficking, all that. So I've been focusing on that, as well as 5G, the cell phone, the new cell phone technology, and surveillance and facial recognition, and the whole surveillance states, the credit scores, social credit scores, and all these kinds of ideas. Those have been my main two focuses, if anything, the last 8 to 10 months. And I decided, well, what's another way to talk about that and to get people to listen? Use this race, because the mayor that's currently here in power in Houston, he's actually already in the back pocket of Verizon and the tech companies. He received the 5G Wireless Champion Award for removing all restrictions and making it super easy for Verizon. And now Sprint just announced they have a new 5G network in Houston just a couple of days ago. And when I came home from being on the road last year, and I got home to Houston in the fall, I'm like, all right, it's time to get back to journalism. And I started researching the pedophilia, human trafficking. I started researching 5G, and I realized that they were saying Houston was going to be the test city. The world's first 5G customer was apparently here in Houston. And I was like, wow, I kind of know a little bit about this. I've heard some things about cell phones being dangerous. So I've always been sort of like, let me not just keep this to my head, or, on my chest or in my pockets or whatever, things like that. But I decided it was time to dive down that rabbit hole, since it was being rolled out here in my city that I've lived in my entire life. And when I did that, I was just astounded to realize how obvious the corruption is. Like, when you start to look at 5G and health problems and privacy problems, and the usurpation of local control, and just more corporatism with the corporations and the government working together, from Donald Trump issuing executive orders to help the 5G rollout and to expand it even faster, down to the local level here. Like I said, the mayor having the 5G Wireless Champion Award, and him doing everything he could. So after spending the last 10 months doing journalism and going to city council, and some of my videos going pretty viral, going there and just confronting them and sending them information and interviewing experts, doctors, researchers, scientists, interviewing lawyers and attorneys about the privacy concerns, I realized, like, wow, this is probably a bigger issue than most people have realized. It was bigger than I realized. And so, yeah, I figured, you know what, the election's coming up. This mayor is already unpopular. He's been very unpopular in the city for other reasons. And when I talk about 5G, people listen, people seem concerned. So that's kind of where my thought process started with that whole getting into the mayor thing. And yeah, and it also gives, just, I was telling you a moment ago that, like, it's, to me, it's kind of silly, but it's emblematic of how our world works, that if you're in the political game, all of a sudden you're more respectable in the eyes of some people. I don't think most of us really see it that way. We probably see it quite the opposite. But, you know, for the folks who are never going to just stumble across my YouTube channel, especially in the age of censorship we're living in, this allows me a totally new way to reach people, to reach normies, you know, the average person out there who's not searching for conspiracies online. You know, I can just say I'm a candidate for mayor, and all of a sudden I'm getting invited to debates and to speak in front of Democratic groups and Republican groups, and getting invited on local conservative AM radio, and, you know, places that would have never bothered to talk to me. I've been here doing the same work I'm doing now, and they've never made an effort to find out who I am and things like that. So to me, like I said, it was just kind of a real simple, easy trick, if you will, to just say, all right, I'm going to throw my hat in this ring. And just by doing that, that affords me a new stage. So I'm not running to necessarily to win. I'm not running a joke campaign. I'm running this as if, you know, like, let's give it everything I got. I've had, so far in the last 3 weeks, I've had a good amount of support from people online, both in Houston and out of Houston. We've got a website up. It's just my name, DerrickBroze.com. I had a first kind of campaign event a couple of weeks ago. We've got a fundraiser coming up soon. And my main goal is just to spend the next 5 months until the election in November trying to spread the ideas that I'm sure the audience hearing this is, you know, cares about. Like I said, the kind of spiritual empowerment and awareness, as well as exposing corruption. So I'm going to be talking about 5G. I'm going to be talking about surveillance in the city. I'm going to be talking about ending, you know, no-knock raids, because police kill people here in the city of Houston. A couple just died a couple months ago because they had no-knock with the SWAT team. They were accused of being drug dealers. And wouldn't you know it, the cops lied. There's no drugs, there's nothing, but those people are dead and nothing's happened, you know. So talk about those issues. Talk about, you know, I've now come out and said, like, look, as a candidate, and if I was ever mayor, I would not support any efforts to initiate mandatory vaccination orders, because we see that happening in other cities. I would actively stand against any repeal, personal, philosophical, religious, whatever exemptions for vaccination. So that, you know, that topic. So I'm just using this platform to talk about 9 to 10 different issues, which are already a part of my work already. So like I said, it's really not different. And then at the same time, it gives me a platform to talk to people. Well, why do I want to say that cannabis should be decriminalized? Or why do I care about you being able to medicate your family however you choose, whether that's vaccines or not? That reason is because I believe in self-ownership. So I get to bring it back to the principles. And you know, I know some were kind of skeptical, like, oh no, here we go, another anarchist, voluntarist kind of freedom fighter selling out and going to the political system. And I had one of my supporters say, now you're just going to be so concerned about money and just thinking about yourself. And I'm like, well, I don't think you really know me if you think that's kind of what's going to happen to me. And for anybody who checks out the messaging and looks at the website, I talk about agorism. I talk about counter economics, which are very essential to my message already. I talk about don't wait till November to vote. Vote in your community, get involved, you know. So I'm excited because I'm thinking about this very strategically. And I think, Chris, you know that everything I do is very methodical. I don't just waste my energy doing anything. So I'm counting down. I have 5 months till November 5th, 5 months to influence the people of Houston, to spread a message and spread an idea. And so I'm taking that very seriously and thinking, how can I use this next 5 months that no matter what happens in November, I can know that when it ends, they understand something. They understand that self-ownership matters. They understand that the government, the state, and the corporation shouldn't be able to tell them how to live their lives. So, you know, I'm taking it serious enough that I'm putting my energy into it, but I'm not trying to win to become a politician and launch a political career or something like that.
I was impressed when you said the first thing you're going to do is take away power from the mayor and give it back to the city council. And I was shocked because I did not realize that the mayor had so much power in the first place. Has that always been the case? Why is that, do you think?
Well, so I'll speak about Houston and the research I've done a little bit. What I've seen is different cities, they operate a little differently, obviously. Like, that's the way it's supposed to be. There's not supposed to be one, universal rule to rule them all. But generally, there are what are known as strong mayor cities and weak mayor cities. And you can find articles that are arguing one way or the other. People with weak mayors say, oh, we need a strong mayor. People with strong mayors say we need, he needs to have less power. Houston is one of the cities that has a strong mayoral position. But even more than that, this particular position, and it's not just the current mayor, this has just been, I haven't been able to find a day when this was initiated. It seems to have always been this way in Houston. But this particular mayoral position has almost, I would say, dictatorial powers, in the sense that if the mayor, like, say you live in Houston and you and your friends are concerned about 5G, you're concerned about, potholes or any issue that you care about, right? And you all call your council members, you do the things we're told to do. You send emails, you go to city council, you make an effort to be a good citizen, right? And to have your voice heard. And you go there and you do that. And maybe you get some support from your council members, maybe you don't. But let's say they do support you, like, hey, we hear you, we're all about it, we care about these concerns. And they bring that to the table at city council meeting. They say, hey, our constituents are worried about 5G. We need to look more into this. At the end of the day, the mayor, whoever it is, if the mayor isn't down with that, the mayor can just say no. And that means the issue won't be debated. It can't be voted on. It can't even be officially introduced into the agenda, which means that if you and your friends were to go talk about it at council, they would place you at the very end, which means you'd probably be there. And I've been in this position. You would probably be there for 3 to 4 hours sitting around waiting to talk for a minute or two so they can say, bing, time's up, next, and that's generally how they treat people. So they're able to put issues that they don't want to hear about towards the end, towards the back. And a lot of times by the time you even get to speak to council, half the council's already left, the mayor's gone, so it's not like they're actually hearing you. Apparently they're not really checking their emails. So to me, that is a really central point. Besides talking about all these different issues, I'm trying to get people to realize, like, look, the mayor position is just too strong. Like, it shouldn't be that way. This is every issue that I've focused on: surveillance, 5G, the homeless. They have a homeless feeding ordinance here in Houston that says it's illegal to share food with more than 5 people at a time. All these kinds of crazy things. These are all things that the people of Houston never had a chance to express themselves. Now, I don't think voting in an election or voting, I think voting on issues is better than voting for people. At least you can say, hey, we don't want that, as opposed to putting your hope in a person. But at the end of the day, I think that voting in politics isn't the most powerful way to express ourselves. But I do think that at the least people should have that chance, even though voting is flawed. These situations are situations where these 16 council members and the mayor are just going out there and spending taxpayer dollars, signing contracts with companies, doing all kinds of things. And the average person has no idea, and they're not paying attention. And I think a big part of that is because, like, the mayoral race, for example, the local mainstream media is already focused on the 3 candidates they want to talk about. They want to talk about the mayor, and they want to talk about these two other guys. And one of them's a self-made millionaire who's funding his campaign. The other two, the mayor and the other guy, are career politicians. And so everybody's just focused on them. There's myself and 5 other candidates, and we're still 5 months away. And you would think if they actually gave a dang about showing the people of Houston their options, they would interview all of us or talk about all of us. But they've already keyed in on, this is the people you should focus on. These are the people you should talk about. And so you see the same corruption that people are used to hearing about on the federal level down to the local level. And so my goal is to just, like I said, be in this for as long as I can for the next 5 months, to talk about this, to talk about the fact that the mayoral position has too much power. And so let's imagine that by some, who the heck knows, I was able to win this thing. Those main things I would do, everything I'm talking about doing would probably set off a number of lawsuits, because I would say, all right, we're going to stop 5G, Verizon's going to sue. All right, we're going to stop police surveillance, we're going to stop no-knock raids, the HPD union's going to sue, the city's going to get sued. And the reality is that there's not been any sort of candidate or politician in the city who has the balls or the courage to do that, because they're already in the back pockets of them. So you would need somebody who's willing to say, who cares, let them sue. We're going to let the people decide, And then, after all that was done, I would just basically say, let's just change the city charter to take away the power of the mayor and to make the city council more responsive to the people. So ideally, when you, like the situation I described earlier, when you go call your council members or you come to council, that they might actually listen, because their voice matters. Because I've had city council members tell me, hey, I'm with you, I care about this issue too, but I can't do anything. The mayor's going to say no, the mayor's going to turn it down, And even to change this, you have to introduce a resolution, and then the mayor has to approve it. So you have to have a mayor that's willing to say, I will relinquish my own power. And so I figured it was a creative way to at least get these conversations started here in the city.
How far along is 5G right now? I mean, they're putting in the cell towers as we speak, aren't they? I mean, is the service actually in use at the moment? What's going on that front?
So Verizon launched as you know, Verizon has been launching in certain cities around the U.S. since fall of 2018. And Houston was, as I said, was one of the test cities. I know Indianapolis, San Diego, a number of, they're starting, of course, in the major cities. Um, but Verizon has basically home 5G, so it's not like complete blanketed yet. So it's kind of like faster Wi-Fi. That's how most people would be familiar with it. It's a different box where they're like, you can connect 20 different devices at once and download 4K movies and all this kind of stuff. But it only works when you're at home, and there's a few pockets in the city where like, oh, look, I picked up 5G, that kind of thing. But just as of June 4th, Sprint just announced that they're claiming that they're blanketing like 60% of the city now with, they're using old infrastructure that was operating on LTE and 4G, in addition to the new cell sites and small cells are being installed. So it's happening very quickly. I just happened to notice that last night and saw that. And so, I mean, this is why I'm trying to use this camp. This is also why I felt like, okay, look, people can call me a slut and say I'm running for office and this and that. Think whatever you want. I don't care. I got into this whole line of work and this whole path in my life to wake people up, to spread information, to inform myself, and to try to fix things. That's why I started focusing locally all these years ago and started activism here in the city of Houston, because I'm like, well, if this is going on in the world, I need to figure out how I can do something about it in the city I live. So as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most important issues that is taking place right now, if only because it's happening right now. Like, it's happening right now. As people are watching this, there are more cities in the U.S. expanding 5G, but also at the same time, there are more people pushing back. Of course, the media doesn't tell you about this, but you have, I'm writing an article right now about just the last week, the Louisiana House voted unanimously to put a halt on 5G in Louisiana and to study 5G. And that they're the first state to do that, because technically, according to FCC, states and cities are not allowed to study the health effects because, they claim it's safe. There's no reason to. You've got towns in California, you've, of course, us in Houston and other places where there are people pushing back. Belgium, Brussels recently banned 5G. There's a lot of protests in Switzerland. There's people pushing back in Australia. So there is quite a bit of resistance to this. And generally, people are just saying like, hey, how about we exercise the scientific precautionary principle and say, let's slow down and do some more research before we just jump headfirst into a new technology, and unfortunately, there are trillions and trillions of dollars to be made. And that's why the big wireless industry, the big telecom, and the government are working hand in hand to keep this message in the dark. I just will say this last thing on 5G, that last year, The Nation magazine, which, I don't always agree with everything they said, but they did a really good investigation on 5G and cell phones in general. And it was called How Big Wireless Convinced Us That Cell Phones Are Safe. And then it looked at 5G, Wi-Fi, cell phones in general. And that story was named the top 8 censored story of 2018 by Project Censored, which is just an organization that keeps an eye on like stories and tries to say, hey, look, this is being buried. And they said that was probably one of the, their top 8 out of 10 important story that was being buried. And the way that they talked about it is that this is the new big tobacco. The way that tobacco convinced people for years that cigarettes were safe and there's nothing to worry about. This is the, the digital version of that, where we're being told there's no reason to question cell phones and Wi-Fi and EMF and Bluetooth and all these things that we're surrounding ourselves with. And obviously these tools have value. We're using some of them to communicate right now. But my goal is to try to educate people so that, there are steps you can take. You can rewire your house. You can make sure you keep your phone on airplane mode. Don't go to bed with it. Don't put it in your pocket. Don't put it in your bra. There's things that you can do. But the danger with 5G is, even if you do those things, when they roll it out, it'll be everywhere, whether you want it or not. You don't have to buy 5G. You can say, all right, well, we're not going to participate. Me and my family, we're not going to buy 5G. Well, that's fine, but you're still going to be surrounded by cell sites and towers everywhere, because they have to install it every 200 to 500 feet for it to work. So I do think that it's probably one of the most pressing issues of our time right now.
It's more than just faster internet, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, in their version of things, they're saying we're going to have driverless cars, we're going to have augmented reality, virtual reality, better traffic because we'll have sensors in the streets, and more environment friendly because we'll have lights that can detect when there's people around. If there's nobody around, we'll turn off, we'll turn on, whatever. But there's health problems, there's privacy concerns. I mean, and this is what I realize, unfortunately, in the digital age we live, Chris, most people have kind of given up on the idea of privacy. People just sort of shrug when I talk about privacy, and it really blows my mind, because I think anybody who's well researched and understands history and understands the value of privacy can understand that we are not free if we don't have privacy. You know, if you do not have the freedom to even be in your own thoughts, you know, like in the previous generations, it was fighting the Revolutionary War because the British soldiers wanted to, you know, be in your house whenever they wanted. And we're like, no, that's such a huge invasion of privacy. We will not allow that. You know, now it's welcoming Alexa and welcoming 5G and welcoming all these different things. All of these, what they call the Internet of Things, which is going to be the tens and thousands of interconnected devices and sensors. Each of those is going to have a microphone on it. Is going to have potential, you know, recording devices. So in the little bit of privacy we have left is absolutely under threat right now with 5G and with the Internet of Things. And some people think that that's the whole point of it. You know, I don't want to speculate too much. All I know is that, look, there's ACLU attorneys who I've interviewed said, hey, 5G could be a wolf in sheep's clothing that allows the government to monitor everything you do. That's a fact. That is a very real potential. Now, is that the entire reason it's being rolled out, so that we can move into the smart grid social credit score system? I don't know, but it seems going to happen one way or the other. So I'm just trying to do whatever I can to try to get some sanity into the conversation, really.
We don't know, but probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good probably.
Derrick, what's next for you? What's going on? When's your next debate? What's immediate and a bit further down the road? Then what's with that?
So as I said, I'm going to be doing this campaign, and you know, it's not consuming all of my time. I mentioned to you before, I put out regular Monday through Friday videos on the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel. I've got a few more lined up we're in June right now, so early June, but I'll probably be taking a break from videos. I need to do a little bit of self-care, you know, kind of just taking care of my own self, but I never stopped working, you know, so I'm also working on a book that is kind of interrelated to what we were just discussing. It's called Counter Economics: How to Opt Out of the Coming Social Credit State. And it's basically taking some of the work I've talked about before about the idea of opting out of systems like economic systems, you know, big pharma systems, food production systems, pretty much anything that you see that doesn't represent your values or is highly centralized or controlled by the corporations or controlled by the government. Rather than trying to vote them out, rather than trying to overthrow them with violence, the idea for me has always been like, create a third way, a third path. Let's build something better. Let's take our toys away from them and let's start a new game. Let's stop playing their game, right? So I'm taking that concept even further in this book and kind of continuing on some previous things I've written about, but I'm specifically focused on how do you do that when facial recognition is spreading everywhere? How do you do that whenever we're moving towards social credit scores like they already have in China, where millions of people are being denied the right to even fly out of their own home country, where if you post the wrong things on social media, your score goes down, and then your friend's score goes down just for hanging out with you. You know, what does that world look like? Because this is basically social engineering. It's a soft form of social engineering to try to push the herd to act like the controllers want, to behave the way we want. And if not, well, we're going to take away your trinkets and your all the novelties and the things you enjoy. You might not be able to go to the movies. You might, in China, their handbook says that they want to create a perfect citizen, and that anybody who's antisocial eventually won't even be able to move a single step, because you'll just be penalized that hard. Well, people won't do business with you. You won't be able to get into, museums or use the library, or just, they want to make it difficult for anyone to live and breathe in a way that does not comply with the state's mandates. So I started thinking, like, this is not far off from coming in the United States. And I want to try to create as close to the handbook as possible, or at least come up with as many helpful and imaginative tips and ideas that I can on what this idea of opting out of the system looks like in that world, because we're moving very quickly to it. So I'm a couple months behind on that book. I wanted to have it out already, but I'm getting pretty focused on it now. It should be out by the summer. Other than that, the last couple summers I've been on the road doing speaking tours, and I'm taking a break from that this year. I only have one other talk planned this year. Well, actually two. I'll be going to Jackalope Freedom Festival, which is in Arizona, in the forest of Arizona. If anybody's interested in that, I definitely recommend it. It's a really cool camp out.
August or July?
It's in late July, early August, like the last weekend of July, first weekend of August. There's people hanging out in the forest for about 2 weeks, but the main parts are kind of like the 2 weekends, because, obviously some people got to work. But I mean, if you're looking it's not like your typical conference festival kind of thing. You'll see some of the same people you might see at those places. They just come hang out. But what I love about it is it's truly decentralized. For one, it's free. You just show up to the forest. Here's the coordinates. Show up. Bring your family. There's lots of kids. There's kids running around. It's totally decentralized. There's no registration table. In fact, there's a deregistration table. Nobody's officially in charge. There's a sign-up sheet where anybody can sign up to speak, whether you're Derrick, Broze, or Chris, or just some random person who's got something to share, to play music, to speak your mind. Anybody can get on the stage and sign up. Anybody can host a random skill share and say, hey guys, we're doing yoga here at the meadow at 2 p.m. Or hey, we're going to take the kids on a foraging hike, or we're going to, whatever. There's, it's just such a beautiful mix of people out in this beautiful forest. So I'll be giving a short talk there in the summer. And then in September, I'll be speaking at Anarchadelphia in Philadelphia. But other than that, I don't really have any other, travel kind of speaking plans. I'm just trying to be home right now. Like I said, because of everything we just discussed, I have an RV that I'm working on repairing and really thinking about where myself and my potential family, where we want to be. And I am leaning more and more every day towards leaving the United States, because I just think that I need to be able to make sure that I'm set up in a place that, not to abandon or to forget about the United States, but to make sure that if the shit does hit the fan in the way that it seems to be going, that I will far off for a little nuts, but to me, I think that's a pretty realistic potential. So that's sort of what's on my horizon right now. Just finishing that book, working on this campaign for the next 5 months, working on my RV, and then I'm just turn, in this really dark direction. Like I feel like I need to take an active role in making sure I can take care of myself and my family and maybe help other people along the way. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my time and the rest of this year.
That's great, Derrick. Will this be your 5th book?
Yeah, this will be the 5th book, and I've got 2 more planned after this, but this is the main one I'm focused on. Yeah, there they are.
Here, Conscious Resistance, Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, Finding Freedom in an Age of Confusion with your buddy John Vibes, and Manifesto of the Free Humans. Very good. Yep. I'm afraid I've got your 4th book on my desktop, but I don't have it physically. I'll have to get a copy from you at some point.
I'll send you one, man. I appreciate it. I remember you talking to me about it before. But yeah, I think anybody who's checked out my previous work, and I do want to mention that the books that Chris was just showing, they're all downloadable for free on my website. So if you don't got the money to buy them, you can go to theconsciousresistance.com, check out our books tab. You can see them all there. Download the PDFs. Check it out. If you feel like you want to buy a physical copy, go for it. But I put all my work out for free because it needs to be there. It doesn't do any good for me just sitting in a box at my house. I need the ideas to spread. So.
And also, not to mention your freedomcells.org website that's designed to connect communities with things in common. That's another very good website that you've started.
Yeah, check out Freedom Cells. It's just, the things we were just talking about. And if you're a part of this community, then you understand the importance of connecting to people, not just digitally, but the hope is real world. And trying to find people of similar interests, similar backgrounds, similar skills, or people who have the skills that you lack. And freedomcells.org, that's CELLS.org, like the cells in your body, is just a way to connect people in that way. And what I consider, importance of building circles or hubs or cells, or whatever you want to call them, the name's pretty irrelevant, just coming together and realizing that despite the beauty of the digital technology that we have and, that we're able to have these kind of conversations and connect people all around the world, nothing beats being able to connect face to face with people. So that's what I'm focused on.
Exactly. The Richard Groves, he's the host of the Autonomy Season 1, and we're all over the world on the course. We do our work online with Discord, which is actually a gaming platform, but we do anything but play games. But just last weekend, we had a Texas gathering of all the Autonomy Season 1 members who got together face to face. And Red Pill Expo is coming up this weekend, and there's going to be a lot of like-minded people getting together face to face. It's going to be a good experience. Derrick, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything I'm up to. I just want to say thanks for all the work you're doing, and thanks for everybody else out there who's doing their work. I know that whether or not we all have YouTube channels or Discord channels or Instagram accounts, or if you're just one person talking to your family, or, you know, being the crazy one, annoying everybody that you know, that we all play a role. And we really are dealing with some heavy situations, some difficult times, no matter what area you're looking at. But there's also a lot of beauty in the world too. There's a lot of success. There's a lot of good people questioning things. And I have to remind myself that quite often too, because it can be pretty difficult when you do this on a regular basis to forget that and to realize, wait, there is goodness out there. There is positivity happening. So I just want to remind everybody to do that. You know, make sure you're taking care of yourself and not getting sucked down the rabbit hole, because you know, I think we both know, and we've seen this. I've seen other people like Corbett and others talk about this. Is something I've been pushing to people, is that this is not supposed to just be, you know, purely entertainment. This is not just supposed to be, you know, infotainment, conspiratainment. Like, I think most of us are doing these things and taking the time out of our days to do podcasts and interviews because we want to inspire people to question things, you know, not just so you binge on a bunch of YouTube videos and then don't do anything. You know, take these ideas and implement them, and change your world, change your life, change your family's life, and then inspire other people to do the same. That's all I really think that is important at this time.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot, Derrick.
Thank you, brother.